Hello, and let me start by saying thank you for listening to the Calm Mum Show podcast. I'm your host, Lorraine Walker, a cognitive behavioural hypnotherapist, child educator and mindset coach, and I'll be bringing you tiny 10-minute episodes, injecting some TLC to you mums out there to help shift your mindset if you're stuck, help you rein in your inner momzilla, and unleash your calmer mama. I hope you enjoy. Hello everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Calm Mum Show, and I'm absolutely thrilled today to be joined by Kayla Burch. And Kayla is based in Oklahoma, which is amazing for us in the UK because it's miles away. But anyway, Kayla is a business and mindset coach, and she's also a mum of 4 children who she homeschools. So I think personally she's a warrior entrepreneur. And I would just, without any further ado, hand over to Kayla, and she'll introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her journey. So over to you, Kayla.
Oh, thank you so much for that introduction. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself and what I do. So you heard that I am a mom of 4 and we homeschooled our children, but I also run a really successful and thriving coaching business where I help female entrepreneurs who are really ready to level up to that next level. But that next level isn't just in their business, it's in their personal life as well. So one of the things that I really started to discover as I was working with women is that we have a strong disconnect from our inner worlds. And so we're doing so much for our families, for our spouses, for our businesses, for our communities, that we get so far removed from what we feel like our purpose is in that inner being of who we are. And so as we work together, and then that's when, just to say a little bit more on that's when we start to feel overwhelmed, or we feel like we're lacking that purpose. It's just because we're just not connected to it, or we're not clear on it. So in my work, what I do is I help women connect to that. I help them understand how they can still have all these other things moving forward and also be completely and totally in love with themselves. And so we really work on that. And the more in love with yourself that you are, and the more connected you are to your inner being, the more you thrive personally and professionally. So I help women in their business, but a big focus is helping women connect to that inner world.
Absolutely. I love how you've described that, because often the clients that I have coming through, they come with the stress and anxiety, but then they're saying, I don't understand why my business isn't taking off, why I can't get anything done, and you realize that they're stuck. They're just stuck.
Yeah.
And it's that mindset work, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And then I also believe that we have energetic matches. And so I feel like if we're stuck in anxiety and we're spinning in our own turmoil or our own lives, then our business is going to do the same. It can't take off if the energy that we're putting out is that of lack and confusion and lack of clarity. And so the more clear we are, the more clear our business route has, and the energetic matches we can begin to receive.
Absolutely. Kayla, what kind of advice would you give to a mum out there who is maybe doing a side hustle and is really wanting to take it to the next level, but they're stuck? And because you've done it, I mean, you're doing it, and you're also homeschooling 4 children. So what kind of advice would you give to those women that feel they would love to be an entrepreneur, but they feel stuck?
Yeah. So one of the first things that I would always ask her, and I do always ask, is this what you want to be doing? Because sometimes we just feel like, okay, this isn't working out. And it's because it's not supposed to be working out. It's not the thing for you. And so we spend so much time and energy and capacity in different places that really aren't serving us. And so the first question to ask yourself is this something that really lights me up? Does it really bring me joy? Or am I doing it solely for the income? Am I doing it for the praise? What am I doing it for? And if it's anything that doesn't completely match up with fulfillment and joy, it's going to continue to be a struggle. It's not saying you can't do it and it can't be successful, but there's a different level of mindset work that comes along with it. So the first and foremost question would be to ask yourself, is it something, why am I doing this? Is it bringing me that joy? Is it connecting to myself? And what do I love about it? And what are my strengths to be able to make it happen? Then once you get really grounded And if it is a place for you to be, then you can start to figure some other things out because that passion has been lit, right? That fire and that outcome, you're more outcome driven because the outcome is the fulfillment. It's not just money. You can get money anywhere, right? You can find money on the street. And so like it's passion driven and fulfillment driven, and you're more likely to show up that way, and you're more likely to prioritize it if you truly put it as a priority and necessity.
Absolutely. Another question I'd love to ask you is, I know that you juggle and spin so many plates and homeschooling 4 children, which in itself is a stress factor. I mean, I come from an education background, so I know this, but you've got such an age range, 13, 9, 8, and 5. How do you manage the overwhelm, and how do you make that devise between the educating your children and running your coaching business?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll tell you 2 different versions of me. So first version, when I first started out, I was a ball of overwhelm, right? Everything that went wrong, I was just like, of course it's going wrong, right? Of course that's not working out. Of course, right? I mean, it was just an expectation that things weren't going to work out. And then if I was expecting something to not work out, guess what? It wasn't going to work out for me, right? So then my whole life was all these things, and it was just a ball of overwhelm. So when I started to do a lot of the work I've been sharing on myself personally, that's when things started to shift for me. So I actually don't feel overwhelmed with anything. I started to get really relaxed with our homeschool. I started to do very similar to what I encourage people to do about their business. And what is the purpose of this for me? What does it bring my fulfillment? What's the purpose for my children? And how can I just focus on that and not worry about the other things and let life flow? How can I work with my life and not against my life? So I had this complete mindset shift where it's like I could be doing, I mean, my schedule can be full. I mean, full, but it's full of the things that brings me joy, brings my children joy. It moves us forward. So there's no overwhelm. And if something changes in that schedule, it's just like, okay, that's a change of schedule. So I think the biggest thing for me is allowing life to flow, and I'm flowing with life and not resisting. So if there's a major curveball, and I've had some major curveballs in my life, I mean, major. So those major curveballs never derailed us. They were just something else that we learned to flow with instead of creating resistance against. And once you start to,
That's
yeah,
the strong mindset, though, isn't it? Because if that
yeah,
happened to other people, that
yeah.
curveball can send them down a rabbit hole.
Yeah. And in those curveballs, especially for other people, when our mindset is, and I'll just say unstable, right? Because that's how I was. I was unstable. I wasn't grounded within anything. So the smallest thing could have thrown me off. Burning something that I was cooking could have just thrown me off. And when we start to get really grounded, we're not unstable. And it's not just, okay, well, of course I was late or I woke up late. We start to find more meaning behind the actions that we're taking, and the more purposeful we're living, the more we're allowed to flow, and the less waving we are. And then things aren't so overwhelming, right? We don't take life so seriously, but we're doing serious stuff. And that's a really hard mindset shift for people to have. Like they're like, raising children is serious, educating them is serious. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not that serious, right? It's not that serious, right? If we know what the outcome is, and if we know what we're working towards, then if we have a day or two that's not going well, we can get back on track the next day or the next day or the next week or the next month.
Absolutely.
We have time. And the more you allow that, the less a bad day or a bad hour becomes your main thing.
Absolutely. I love that, because that to me it's all about the mindset, isn't it? Because some of the people that come through therapy for me that are not business owners, their mindset is the huge biggie. It's the one thing that can shift someone for feeling value in themselves and moving on in their life, isn't it? It's just that
Yeah.
mindset stuck. So I'd just like to ask you about time management, because that is huge in the business world, isn't it? And I know you're a business and mindset coach. So
Yeah.
when you take away the mindset element, and you've kind of
Mhm.
got them in a great state of mind so that you can work with them on their business, how
Mhm.
do you get them to sort of follow some sort of my time management? Because I know for me, I used to teach time management, and I was the world's worst time manager. I was constantly juggling. So
Yeah. Yeah. So the way that I help clients lean into managing their time is really more about managing their priorities. And so it's managing priorities and it's doing things that work for you. That's my biggest thing. That's like if I had a philosophy in life, it's that you better do something that creates the most and least resistance and just flow with life. And I feel like our schedule needs to do the same. And so with clients, what I do is I just have them look at their schedule and what works. And if it can't fit here, then where else will it be in the week? Because I work with a lot of moms. I work with a lot of female entrepreneurs. So they have a lot of different things that they're working with. And so we start to make I start to make ideas around if this doesn't work, then what will? Because we know that there's going to be a child that's sick or this is going to happen, or, especially at the very beginning when we're trying to create new habits. That's when most things happen. And it's also when we notice things more because they're more obvious once we start to get things more structured and we've been flowing for a while. That little kid sick doesn't really make a big of a difference. We just go pick the kid up or we go give them their medicine or we cuddle with them when we do the things with them. And then we get back to what we were doing. It doesn't derail us because we've already set up this structure and we allow that flow. So I always make sure that clients understand that their schedule is supposed to work for them, not against them. And that's the first thing. And then we work together to see what that looks like because it's different for everybody. There's this is the structure that you need to do. People would die if I said, wake up, it's 5:30 a.m., 5:49 now for me. And they're like, and if I was like, wake up at 5:49, do a podcast, they'd be like, you're fired. Right. But that works for me. It's the best thing in the world for me to wake up and do these things. And I start my calls at 7 and I'm done no later than 1 p.m. And so on every day.
Fabulous.
Yeah. And so that works for me. I hate doing calls in the afternoon. Like I don't want to work at 3, 4, 5 p.m. I just don't. And so I'm not going to. So I'm going to wake up earlier. Some people don't want to work early. They would rather work late. So do that. So it's really leaning into now, this is where the internal world comes in. It's when understanding your strengths and what you like and what brings you that joy is because now you can create the schedule in a way that's supportive for you.
Absolutely. I love that. I just love your philosophy. It's just really, it's refreshing, really, isn't it? So when you finish your calls at 1 o'clock, because one of the questions I had was, it's a question that I get asked all the time is, I'm a mom and some of them are homeschooled, and I've started a business. Do I have a bricks and mortar business or do I have an online business? I've got both. What about you? How do you run your business?
Yeah, so my business is strictly online because that's what works best for me. I can actually pick up my business at any time, and we love to travel across the United States. So we travel for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. And so we're able to do that. And so that's our flexibility. So I completely do things all online, but I do have clients that do have brick and mortars as well. And so for them, it really comes down to a lot of delegating. When are you going to be there and not be there? What does this look like? Are your kids with you? And so it's really just starting to, again, incorporate and work with what you want. You either want the brick and mortar or you don't. You either want to be homeschooling your children or you don't, right? And that's the thing. And people think it's, well, I can't. Well, you can, right? You really can. And so you have to find, and people don't like to hear that because that puts a lot of personal responsibility on their shoulders. And my philosophy on personal responsibility is it's actually not overwhelming, it's a release. Because when we realize that we're personally responsible for all the choices we make, that's a lot of control we now have. And that's control that we had given to other people. And when we get that back, that's actually a huge shift and weight off of our shoulders versus adding more to it because nobody else is running our life. And if nobody else is running our life, then we feel happier automatically. There's no resentment. And so I think that's a big thing to recognize as well. So whatever you do, whether you're brick and mortar or you're online, just figure out what works for you. And when you have a cutoff time, it's your cutoff time. Stop working.
I love that. I'm going to take that lesson myself because I'm so flexible with everyone. I can even take calls in the evening if they're working and they need some therapy or some mindset work or whatever. I'll offer a Zoom in the evening, and I'm thinking, actually, every day I'm going to be looking at my diary and I'm going to be going, it's 1 o'clock. Kayla's down tools for the day.
That's right. Yeah. And this is the thing. If you want to work at that time, work at that time. But if you don't, and if you think, why did I do that? Then stop doing it, and then put your own boundaries. Like, so for me, if someone's like, I just had a client recently and we got the times mixed up. And so I thought we were going to be doing really early calls. And somehow she thought we were going to be doing really late calls. And I'm like, I don't do really late calls. Like, so if we can't make this work for early calls, then I'm really sorry, this isn't going to work for me. And if someone would be like, you would lose an entire client over one call or 1 hour in the end, like, absolutely I would, because that makes a huge difference in how I feel about my life and my work. And if I don't feel good, if I'm doing things that are ran by other people, then I'm just going to continue that. And now all of a sudden I'm going to have a full roster at 5 p.m. because I don't have a solid boundary.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that one. And I think you're the queen of self-care for me, because you've definitely got your boundaries set in place.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, well, we're coming to the end, because I just do tiny podcasts, nice little short, snappy podcast. I just want to ask you, Kayla, what would be your lasting piece of advice if a mum was sitting on the fence and wanted to start her own business?
Oh, that's a really wonderful question.
That's a huge question.
That's a big question. So after they ask if it's something that they truly want and they decide yes, and they're saying, yes, it is, then I would really challenge them to look at what needs to shift in their life to make it happen. So the boundaries that we just talked about with time, that's where I would start. What are the boundaries that need to put in place for you to create the space for you to run a successful business? And that's the first and foremost, because if we can create the space in our schedule, even if it's just 30 minutes, an hour, whatever that looks like, to get it going, and then also remind yourself of why you're doing it, why you're worth it, what that outcome is, and keep that in mind. And don't let, and some people will say, get that momentum, but momentum is the weird thing that it happens and then it goes away, and then it happens and it goes away. So when we feel the lack of momentum, we want to quit and we say, it's not worth it. It's not worth this hour or 2 or 3, right? But it's to keep digging down, understanding this is what you want, and not letting those external factors become major excuses for you, and actually show up for yourself and for other people. Right? Because we can't forget we do these things for other people, right? This is for myself, but my mission is to help other women really lean into their gifts and their passion and how they can change the world, so we can all change the world together. So it becomes looking at that bigger picture as well, but keeping yourself at the center, because you are the center. So that would be my advice.
Absolutely. And just one last tiny question. Oh, and I've lost it. It's went out of my head. What was it? Tiny. Oh, yes. Each client you have, do you follow your own system, or do you take each client individually, or do you have a system that you take them through, or do you just go with the flow with every individual?
Yeah, that's another great question. So I work with clients for 6 months because I find when we're working for mindset and business, it requires a lot more time. And so each client, it's a very similar structure, but it's not like week 1, we talk about this, and week 2, we talk about this. It's week 1, we really we start to understand your business and your mindset. And then week 2 is fair game. Whatever you need to be focusing on is what we focus on. And then we just move the needle along from there. But each and every session includes something that's moving your business forward, as well as shifting your mindset as well. So.
Okay, and just to wrap up, Kayla, it's been fabulous having you. I've got a little nugget myself.
So glad.
I just wanted to ask for those listeners out there who may resonate with you, and because you've got an online business, you've got a global audience. So how do people get in touch with you, Kayla?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of my clients, actually, I work internationally, so I have a lot of clients all over. I've worked on 6 of 7 continents. So you can find me on Instagram as my main place, Kayla Burch. So just at Kayla Burch. And then also my website is KaylaBurchCoaching.com.
Fantastic. Well, it's been lovely talking to you. I know it's 5:30 in the morning over there. It is noon here in the UK. Really appreciate you coming on, Kayla, and hopefully have you on again in the future in another episode. And take care.
Yes, thanks so much for having me.
Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, and thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you've had some mindful moments to take away. So in your mind, something you've learned, in your heart, something you've felt, and for your Mindful Mum toolbox, something that you can actually take away today. And remember, you can connect with me by tapping on the microphone, send me a message, or visit my website, or connect on social media. I would love to have you join my new community, the Calm Mums Academy. And one last thought for all you mamas out there, remember, you're the best mama for your child, so take good care of you. Until the next time, bye for now.